What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Unlockables podcast, the story of video games, the people who play them, and the memories made along the way. As always, I am your host. My name is Eric, and I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in wherever, whenever in time and space you may be located. It means the world to me that you're willing to stop on by the show and see what is going on in the world of video games. Today's episode is going to be a rather exciting one. Today we are doing an episode on the first ever Unlockables community game of the month, and this game was chosen by the Unlockables patrons and the denizens of the Unlockables Discord server. We had a poll that went up last month to vote on 4 games to be played for this episode, and the winner was the 1997 tactical role-playing game Final Fantasy Tactics. And the really, really cool part about this community game of the month thing I'm doing is that I'm inviting people from the community to come on the show and do this episode with me if they so choose. So that's been a really, really cool experience to be able to do that and implement that into my show so far. So I have a very special guest with me today who's going to be guiding me through the incredibly dense and confusing world of Final Fantasy Tactics. He is a professional voice actor, Twitch streamer, YouTuber, dungeon master, Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, nerd, and fellow dad. My good friend Mick Davis is on the show with me today. Mick, how are you doing today, sir?
I am fantastic. So glad to be here.
I'm very excited to have you. We've been friends for, I don't know, I think we connected like pretty much as soon as I started my podcasting journey. It's just kind of, you follow accounts and you reach out and just kind of start making friends with people. And we both kind of found ourselves in this indie video game podcasting circle community of creators that do a bunch of different and fun stuff. This day is long overdue. So thank you so much for coming on and joining me. For the people that might not know you, do you want to give us a little bit of background on some of the stuff that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I am a professional voice actor, not as my day job. It's more of like the fun job that I get to do sometimes that people will let me say ridiculous things in ridiculous voices, which is always a good time. I am a dungeon master as well for Playotic on Twitch. We are a Twitch D&D troupe, and we do all sorts of fun stuff over there. We do charity stuff, we do conventions, pretty much anything and everything D&D related we're doing over there. So that's a huge part of what I do when I'm not being a dad, which is pretty much what I do almost all the time. Is I do martial arts and be a dad. I'm essentially Splinter at this point in my life. I used to be a Ninja Turtle, now I'm Splinter because I am mentoring the next generation.
Something about that statement where you're just like, I do martial arts, I'm a dad, is like one of the coolest fucking sentences that's ever been uttered. Like, that's just so cool.
It's great. I mean, I just recently actually injured my knee, or rather another knee injury, but it's fine. It's not as bad as the last one, so it's fine.
That's good. We hope we will have you back in the arena sometime here in the near future. And
I'm a psychopath. I haven't missed any time at all. It's awful.
I believe you. I'm trying to get back in the gym and get back to running and doing all the stuff I was doing in college. And I have like a lingering foot injury from like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's not going to stop me. I got to keep going.
I keep making the joke that I just needed to even my knees up. In July, I sprained my entire right knee. Literally everything in it I sprained.
Just the whole knee.
The whole knee. Well, so what happened? I'm sure everybody's fascinated by, this, but the IT band on my right knee. So that for those unaware, your IT band kind of runs from like the top of your hip to just the bottom of your knee, and it's a stabilization thing. Mine slipped across my knee and then popped back into place, and it sounded like a gunshot went off. Well, when that happened, my knee shifted like 2 inches to the direction that it shouldn't shift to. So I sprained everything in it. Thankfully, didn't tear anything, so that was good. That was in July, and it got, I say better because it's still not quite 100%. It got better enough, and because, like I said, I'm a psychopath and just kept training the entire time. And then last week, I did the exact same thing with my left knee. My IT band slipped across my knee, but this time the knee didn't get sprained. So, my IT band is just sprained. So that's great. Moral of the story is I'm old and need new knees.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as you progress through the level of age that we are, better enough or good enough is all you can hope for most days when you wake up. So
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's actually why I have a child. I need him to give me his good knees. No,
yes, yes, right. Yes, we have the children for the harvesting
Yes.
of yeah. Whoa, that took a dark turn.
Yeah. No, yeah,
Uh,
no, it's my fault. I referenced it in the first place. It's fine. But yeah, no, it is great. Being a dad, being a martial artist, it's awesome. And he loves it. He really enjoys going to the gym and watching people do martial arts and stuff.
that's
He
awesome.
thinks it's hilarious when people spar.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, we're kind of on the dad journey together here. I mean, your son was born 4 months before mine, so it's kind of been cool to be able to talk about that a little bit.
Oh,
and,
yeah, it's great.
yeah. To anybody out there, join the club. Join the
Yes.
Fresh Dad Club. We got T-shirts.
It's true.
So knees and martial artists and your free body lesson aside, we are here today to talk about the game du jour, as another podcast is so fond of saying. That is Final Fantasy Tactics. It was voted on. It won a pretty decisive victory in the poll between the Discord votes and the Patreon voters. And I was really excited because this was a game that I've been meaning to play for a long time. And as much as I groaned and complained and bitched about playing RPGs in the Discord and just in general, like, I should not have played so many RPGs this year, especially being the first year of fatherhood. And for some reason, I'm just like, give me more RPGs to play. I don't know what is my problem, but that it was the game that was picked. I have a little bit of background information here about Final Fantasy Tactics, and then Mick and I will go into some of our personal experiences and general thoughts about the game. Final Fantasy Tactics is a 1997 tactical role-playing game developed and published by Square for the PlayStation. It is the first game that takes place in the popular Final Fantasy setting of Ivalice. Ivalice sounds good to me. Production of Final Fantasy Tactics began in 1995 and was directed by Yasumi Matsuno, who was known for creating the Ogre Battle series. He had worked on Ogre Battle and Tactics Ogre before going over to Square, and he's worked on several notable titles at Square since then, including Vagrant Story, Final Fantasy XII, as well as some scenarios in Final Fantasy XIV, and basically every Tactics Ogre, every Ogre game that has ever come out. This game was born from the desire that Hironobu Sakaguchi had always wanted to do a tactics-style Final Fantasy game for a while, but he was too busy with his involvement with the main Final Fantasy series, which at this point they were pumping out like one every year, one almost every other year, and he was unable to realize it until Matsuno came over to Square. And there's also an enhanced port of the game titled Final Fantasy Tactics: The War of the Lions, which was released on the PSP in 2007, featuring some enhanced graphics, new cutscenes, and minor gameplay tweaks and changes. This game was released in Japan on June 20th, 1997, in North America, January 28th, 1998. And as for some review scores, some contemporary review scores around the time, it is sitting at an 83 out of 100 on Metacritic. Edge gave it a 9 out of 10. EGM with a triple decimal point 8.875 out of 10. Man, we were really pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, that's like, they really wanted to stand out with how they judged this game, right?
They were like, our grading system is so granular that it needs the 1,000th decimal place to be able to judge it.
God, I miss that era of video games.
Yeah, it was great. Famitsu, a 34 out of 40. Game Fan, speaking of crazy scales, a 267 out of 300. So, I should look up that article, or if it's on like Archive or something like that, just to see what the logic is in scoring it with 300 points. GameSpot an 8.9 out of 10, IGN an 8.5 out of 10, and the hometown newspaper, Chicago Tribune, 4 stars. And just for some sales numbers here, Tactics sold about 1.24 million units in Japan alone in 1997 and has reached roughly 2.4 million units sold as of 2011. That was like the quick Wikipedia sales numbers search, but this game is incredibly well thought of by the Final Fantasy community. So, Mick, I'm going to toss it over to you. Just give me a little bit of your background information, your personal experience with the Tactics games, because as soon as I put the poll up, you messaged me and were like, hey, if Tactics wins, I want to be on the episode.
Yes,
so what was the reason why you were so passionate about coming on this one specifically?
It's one of my favorite games of all time. And I've played it so long, and I've replayed it so many times. When War of Lions came out, I instantly grabbed it, which is actually a really great port, because it's it's the original game, but it's cleaned up a little bit. Like graphics are a little better. You know, they added some cutscenes, added some additional characters, additional jobs, did a little bit of balancing. So it's great. There's a multiplayer that you could do, but like PSP multiplayer is god awful. But that's not the point. But for me, so one of the reasons why I loved it is the same reason why I've kind of always loved RPGs. Growing up, was I don't want to say I was a poor kid, but I was not a wealthy child. So it was one of those things of like when you got, video games as a gift, you wanted to make sure that it's something that you could get a lot of gameplay out of. And Tactics is one of those things that you can get so much gameplay out of. And because
Insane
for me,
amounts.
like my birthday's in March, that's a long way from December where you would get, like the majority of your presents. Because like birthday, you typically get like 1, maybe 2 gifts and that's that. So that was like the cool thing is like Tactics, I could just play this game for hours and hours and it was always dynamic. It always changed. You could reapproach the same fight and do it in different fashions depending on like which jobs you had or which characters you used. And it's one of those things that when I was younger, a friend of mine also had it. And this was back in the day and age where like, gaming on the internet was sort of in its infancy and it was almost exclusively on the PC at that point. So what we would do is we were both playing Tactics at the same time and we would like, okay, what's your team built like? What are you doing on this fight? And like, what are you running into? And like, just kind of going back and forth at school and that sort of thing. And we would do like self-imposed challenges of like, okay, you can't use white mages. You can do anything, stuff like that. So it was just like little challenges that we would kind of throw at each other and stuff like that. And so that's, I think, why it like resonates so much with me is because, you have that like bond where, somebody else is like super into it. And, not to get weird or anything, but because I'm old, I come from a time where like video games and specifically like RPGs, even more specifically, tactical RPGs weren't exactly cool. So to have somebody who's like into it and you guys are like, yeah, this is great, and I guess like it's like the equivalent of like like fantasy football or something where you're like talking about your lineup and who should I put in the lineup, and if somebody overhears you, they're like, oh yeah, they must be talking about like that. No, we were talking about Final Fantasy Tactics and like, well, so what I did,
fantasy, it has fantasy in the title.
Exactly, so no one was any the wiser, but
right.
Yeah, so that's one of the main reasons why it stuck with me so much. Like, I have on my wall the character art poster that came from the strategy guide, and I will go ahead and say this now. I'm going to butcher all the names because if anybody's familiar with War of the Lions, the translation's better. So they changed almost all of the names of the characters. I never call them what their names should be because I go off the PlayStation version where it was like Algus. His name's actually like Argith or Argarth or something like that. But yeah, I always call him Algus because like that's what he is in the PlayStation version. So it's not too bad because Rams is still Ramza and Delita is still Delita and Ovelia is still Ovelia. But they're like the high priest of in the PlayStation version, it's Funeral. I don't remember at all what it is in the War of the Lions because it's so crazy. It's like Fargoth or something. I'm like, that's nowhere near Funeral. But yeah, so the translation in the original one is terrible. But yeah, have that. Love the game. It's one of my all-time favorites because I think the story's super cool and it was very different and very dark and like, especially for like Final Fantasy, which is usually like, we got to save the world. And that is essentially the plot of this game as well. But it's like way like darker and like bloodier. It's the Japanese Game of Thrones. That is what this game is. Story wise anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a big rambling answer to your question, but I'm just so pumped.
I think game. Yeah, I think that's really cool that you kind of had that. So the experience that you described with Final Fantasy Tactics with your friend was like, I think the experience probably everybody had, maybe like a year or 6 months later when Pokemon came out. Because that was That was the exact same experience. It's like if you had somebody that had a game, was into it with you, you weren't going on Google, at least not for a few more years for me, to like find stuff out. It was your friends were your only source of information, and whatever you could clip out of like Nintendo Power or whatever gaming magazines that there were. And those
GameFAQs.com.
Yes. And so, yeah, your experience was the exact same as all of us on the playground playing Pokemon, where it was like, what are you doing? Or Mew's behind the truck, or this, that, or other things you could do. All that kind of playground stuff that got spread. So as for myself, just a little bit of background knowledge. Anybody that's listened to this show knows that I have said multiple times that the Intelligence Systems GBA games were my gateway to tactics RPGs, to tactics games in general, is because the first one I played probably ever in my life was Advance Wars. And that game just kind of hooked me immediately into like the loop of like taking turns and plotting out your strategy and all this kind of the war kind of game that lends itself to a type of tactics. Then Advance Wars compared to this is probably a pretty shallow entry point to like the tactics pool overall. And then that game did well enough that we finally got a Fire Emblem stateside, FE7 on the GBA in 2003, I think it was. And that was my first real exposure to any kind of RPG tactics games in my life. And like after that, I think I discovered that there was like a Final Fantasy Tactics game, like not only on the PlayStation. I have spotty some vivid memories of playing. Maybe it was Tactics Advance on the GBA, but I only did one playthrough of it, and that was so long ago that I don't really remember like specifically what happened, because when I fired up this game for the first time, like it felt familiar, like all the terrain and the guys and the way that it was laid out and the way guys move and stuff. So I have to assume that I played Tactics Advance at least somewhat during my childhood, but I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I have to go back to that game and play it. But my RPG tactics kind of lifestyle has only been limited exclusively to like Fire Emblem. I've played those games to death. I've played them on the hardest difficulties. I've done like Iron Man, like permadeath, like you lose your entire run if one person dies, like crazy shit like that. So I've always been meaning to go back and play this because I have such a soft spot in my heart for the Final Fantasy franchise. And I'm like, Final Fantasy Tactics RPG, like that sounds like it's right up my alley. So I'm really glad. I was really excited when this game got voted, but I got to say, Mick, as we were talking a little bit before recording, I was not prepared for what this game had to offer initially. It was a very, very steep challenge that I found myself walking into, because I did kind of go in with that cocky attitude. I don't think I'm as good at video games now as I used to be back in the day when I had more time. And usually my patience is a little more thin now for like things that are extra challenging. So but Fire Emblem's always been a game that I feel like I've been really good at. And tactics, I'm like, I'm smart enough. I can figure this out. I can walk in and this game will be no problem. And that was not the case. There were multiple times through my playthrough that I struggled. I spent hours on battles trying to fully grasp all the systems, all the rules, everything that the game was trying to tell me. And I got to say, for like the first couple of days I was playing it, I was actually pretty discouraged because I wasn't getting a grasp on like what to do. And I found myself like really struggling even early on in battles, and like losing guys and like starting over runs and like making myself anxious because I didn't feel like I was doing like the optimal strategy, or I wasn't switching jobs, or I wasn't getting job points here or whatever. But finally it kind of started to click. And like, once you learn all of like the systems and the job system and how that works hand in hand with the leveling system, and how that works with like the Brave and Faith system, and how you really need to engage with those systems to achieve victory and overcome those obstacles, then it really, really started to make sense. So it was a game that I definitely had to stick with. I might have jumped off of it if it wasn't the community game of the month, but I'm really glad I did, because I've gotten appreciation for a game that, like, not to spoil my end thoughts here, that I think you hit the nail on the head. You said it's almost infinitely replayable in the way that you can approach it, because of like the job system and like all the different characters, and like any character that's not like a named character with like a specified class, you can really transform them into any one of the, I don't know, like 12, 14, however many jobs there are, and approach this game from so many different angles. And while there are certain, like, I would say dominant strategies that once you get some of the later game classes can kind of like snowball and just kind of take off, I think that everything in here is pretty much like viable to a certain extent to be able to beat the game with. With that being said, are you ready to dive into, I usually talk about like presentation and then gameplay stuff, but I feel like gameplay might be the meatiest section of this, so I wanted to dive into gameplay right away.
Oh, absolutely. It's there's so much into this game. I like to kind of compare it a little bit in terms of like how a Souls game is. Because
Yes.
Souls games for people, especially if you've never played them before, they have that that level of difficulty and that challenge, and then but that's sort of what like drives you a bit. Like it's like you said, it's a little discouraging, but then all of a sudden something starts clicking because you'll get past a point that you hadn't gotten past before, and you're like, oh, okay, and then the new challenge hits. And admittedly, this game doesn't fight fair at all in a lot of cases, and they do it in a way that creates, that's I think why I like it, because even if okay, this is what's going to be in the fight, this is what I can do, there's still a level of difficulty and challenge for the most part through the majority of the game. Again, late game, you can get so powerful that it's kind of like, right, this isn't really much of a challenge. But that being said, there are still some things that are a challenge, but they'll just introduce new elements to you that if you're new to the game, or not even new, just you've played it some but you haven't gone like deep into it, that'll just kind of come out of left field on you sometimes. And it'll just be something simple like you'll go into a fight and all of a sudden there's a geomancer. Whoa, right. What is that job? I've never seen that job before. What do they do? And then the next thing you know, they cast like some geomancy spell on you and your guy's like turned to stone. You're like, what? Why did that, what? Like, or one of the, I mean, this, I guess, spoils a story element, but like one of the fights that you do against Algus, he has a crossbow. And I think it's one of the first times that you encounter an enemy using that particular weapon. So it hits you hard and you're kind of like, whoa, I have bows. I don't have a crossbow. Where the hell did he get that? But, and the game does that sort of thing to you in several points where you have access to certain weapons in the shop, but then you can go into a certain fight and an enemy might be a job that you may have not unlocked yet, or have equipment that you might not have been able to go access or buy yet. So it doesn't play fair, but at the same time, it's really fun and it's super dynamic. And late game, some of those fights are minimum like 45 minutes just because of the options that are available from depending on the jobs they are, or if there's certain kinds of monsters or whatever the case may be. Like, so late game, it eats up some time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that was kind of my first experience. There's a mission early on in Chapter 1. It's like the Dorder slums or something like that.
Yep, Dorder Trade City.
That mission,
or slums of Dorder,
Yes, the slums of Dorder. And I was kind of poking around on Reddit, and I was just like, oh, like, fuck, this mission's actually really hard after breezing through, like, most of the random encounters in the early missions, like, pretty easily, not really having to, like, switch off jobs. I think at this point, like, I'd still kept everybody as, like, a squire, because I kind of I have analysis paralysis when I'm presented with so much information and I can't like really parse it.
Yeah. I'm sure there is like the optimal strategy. I don't know what it is. I know what my optimal strategy has always been, and yours may be different. And I think, again, that's what makes it magical, is like you can have a completely different makeup and not have it be wrong. It can still just be as valid and powerful as like somebody else's party composition. So yeah.
Right. But what you were talking about is exactly what I ran into when I did the Dorder Slums mission, because I think that's the mission where you get introduced to magic, because there's a couple enemy black mages on the screen.
Yep.
And then
there's the one with like the two big buildings essentially.
Yes.
And it's the black mages and archer and some knights, I think.
Yeah. And that's where you first see the archer too. So there's an archer way up there, and And yeah, so this game has a very in-depth tutorial system, and it's very
Who's
in-depth.
playing that and
But
reading that?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly the thing. So the game kind of expects you to have like engaged with that. And I think I did like 15 minutes of like the tutorial, and it got me like a basic understanding of like navigating the menus and just like movement and all that kind of thing that is base level knowledge that you need to be successful at the game. But then I got to like one of like the further down menus, and there were like 30 sub items, and I was just like, I kind of just want to start playing the game.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll figure it out. How hard could it be? Turns out.
When you run into those elements like the first time, and you just have that level of uncertainty of like, what do these things do? That's where kind of like the trial and error thing kind of comes in. But I'm all for learning by like failure. So like that was fine. Like I was stuck in that battle. I think I died like 3 or 4 times before I was able to finally get past that. And I kind of went back and did some things. And then that's where I kind of started to figure out like what things were going to be useful like, against like certain like compositions. And one of the things I figured out like very early on is that time magic is pretty powerful.
Oh yeah,
getting a time mage up as early is pretty useful, just because this game more than others. So like one of my biggest problems with tactics strategy games, and it's one of my biggest problems with FE7, is that you can basically break the game unless you're playing on the really hard mode by turtling, which is like moving your guys forward like 1 square at a time and just like taking, like I beat the mission, but it took me like 487 turns, because it's just like, so when you slow the game down to a grind, you can basically just like trivialize any challenge that it throws at you, because you're just moving your entire army forward in a massive block, and it's just like, well, there's nothing really you can do about that. Final Fantasy Tactics' biggest strength is, I think, its limitations, because and I'll talk about this when we talk about some of the presentation stuff, they made the active choice to limit not only the map size, but the number of people in your party at a time. Because, like I said, and I hate to keep bringing up Fire Emblem, but that's like my lens. Fire Emblem, usually you can have like 10 to 15 people on map at a time. It's like, I don't think there was a single mission in Tactics where it gave me more than 5 people, not counting guest characters, like uncontrollable characters. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm almost positive. In some cases, that guest is useless. It's some of them completely useless. It just depends. Like there's a mission or two where like Agris is part of as a guest, and she doesn't have a sword in one, which is like, so she's useless, because like the job she needs to have a knight sword, and at that point you can't control her, so she just runs around like an idiot punching things and almost dying. And it's just, oh god, that's the worst part. Like when you first meet Algus, you have an option of either, hey, we should rescue that guy, or defeat the enemies. And if your choice is we should rescue that guy and he gets killed, you lose, mission's over. So I learned very quickly, stop choosing that option, because he is an idiot and will run headlong into all the enemies and very quickly die.
Yes, and that's exactly what happened in that Daughter Slums mission, where it was like him and Delita were just like, they like beeline to the archer on top of like all the boxes or whatever. They're like, fuck this guy specifically, and they just get shot running up to him. I'm just like, well, okay. And then one of the times, Algus was just like, oh, you have potions? Like, let me just use all your fucking potions. And I was like,
oh god, don't
I was like, motherfucker.
He's like, using all my shit. I don't even know you, dude. Like, but I distinctly remember it was the first time I was playing, because again, you know, don't really have a lot of experience with the game, so you don't know. And much like a lot of other Final Fantasies, items are expensive, and you get in your brain like, oh, in all the other games, like you need to buy everybody equipment, every town that you go to and stuff like that. So I didn't have a lot of potions. Got into a fight, and like Ramsa was almost dead, and I was like, oh wait, he's got item, I've got potions. No, I didn't, because Algus used them all and still fucking died, so it didn't matter. I was like, oh great.
Yeah, the guest characters, not terribly smart, but bringing it full circle to what I was going to say, Final Fantasy Tactics really trivializes that like main strategy of like turtling, and I think the limitations of not only the party size but the map size, where it's like the maps feel kind of congested at points. Like there's nowhere to really, especially in the later maps when you get people with like range and magic and stuff and all this crazy shit starts happening, there's nowhere really that you can go to like kind of hide and get a reprieve. Like all of your movements have to kind of be purposeful, like towards your objective. Like I found that one of the things that helped me was I found that wasting turns or like taking suboptimal turns was like really, really hurtful to me. So, like I always wanted to like ensure that whatever turn I was taking was like advancing forward. You might think that, but like it's really easy to like waste turns and waste movement if you don't like properly kind of set up in this game. And that's where you kind of like, whereas like when I'm playing Fire Emblem, I can kind of think one turn at a time. I was thinking like 2, 3, 4 turns ahead as to like kind of where I wanted to be so that I could get done what I wanted to get done. Because yeah, in this game, like people will like swarm you, they'll gang up on you, like stuff will come out of nowhere that you're not expecting, and you have to be able to like react to it. Another thing that I noticed too, it's really, really not advisable to like rush forward at like full speed and like kind of spread your guys out, because at least for me, I felt like I had a harder time when like my people were kind of like all over the place. And I couldn't like get to them if I needed to, because I would say for the most part, like most of the missions I fought were like mostly on equal footing with like in terms of the enemy's levels versus like my levels. And there was never a fight when I went in where I was like, oh, I think I have the advantage like in this one-on-one. It felt like it was kind of like an even fight, and it felt like that for most of the game. Is that
so? It's because the game scales based on your level. Yeah,
that's kind of what I thought.
I think if I remember correctly, it will scale with you in. So the story fights are kind of set at a certain level. So you could be a higher level than them.
Yes.
But like the random battles that aren't story related, those scale to your level. So you won't like if you're level 20, and you get into like a random combat encounter that isn't related to the story, the enemies aren't going to be like level 10, you crush it. No, they're level 20. They're going to be equal to whatever you are, if I remember correctly. But the story battles are set to a certain level. So if you're like level 30, it could be a level 25 fight at max, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong about that.
I feel like I'd maybe pace my gameplay pretty through with what the levels were set for the story missions, and that's interesting.
I have to force myself to not grind and like try and make myself. I try and get ninjas unlocked before I hit like the third story mission, because I just bounce back and forth. I'm going to unlock all these jobs.
Right.
I try and force myself to not do that so I can have more fun with the game.
So we'll jump into the job system here in a second. I just want to say, because you mentioned those random encounters, this game, God, I fucking love chocobos to death. I think they're the best. Like they're one of my favorite things in video games.
Same.
This game made me want to fucking murder chocobos. Like when you fight them, they're they're so annoying the way they can like
fucking
counter
red chocobos with the choco meteor. Ugh.
Yeah, or they'll like run away and heal themselves, or like they can counter you. Like, man, chocobos are vicious in this game. Like
they are, and you get the 3 kinds. You get the the regular chocobo, you get the black chocobo, and you get the red chocobo. And I know some people like I've never been this guy, but some people like a heavy monster party where they'll have like 2 human characters, so they have their jobs, and then they'll just run the rest monsters, because you can recruit monsters.
Yeah.
And I've never done it because, again, I've been so pissed off at the chocobos just running away and healing themselves back up. And I'm like, you son of a bitch, come back. Right. And they have really great movement. And then it just gets worse because, like, the more advanced the chocobo, the better their movement. Like, the black ones can fly, so their movement's better. And I think the red ones can, too. I can't 100% remember. But, yeah, no, I'm with you. It's like, you son of a bitch, stop.
Yeah, in any encounter where there was like more than 2 of them, I was just like, I don't want to deal with this. Like, that's terrifying. It's so
at least
scary.
They give you your own at one point, or you can recruit one at one point.
Yes. Yeah, I think I had like 3 or 4 in my party, like by the point where I was in the game.
And just populate.
They multiply. Yeah, they get busy when they're left alone. So it's
true.
Surprising. So, you mentioned getting ninjas. So the basis of this game. So there's a lot of different things in this game that affect like your characters and how much damage. Like it's a really, really deep combat system. So I'll just briefly go over it here before we jump into the meat, which is the job system. So anytime you do something in combat, you get experience points and you get job points. So experience points obviously go towards leveling up your character, and job points go towards mastering whatever job it is that you currently have, I guess, equipped or selected on that character. There's an additional system. There's an additional set of stats that each character has. It's also it's called bravery and faith. and that determines whether or not a character is more prone to physical attacks, like better at physical attacking, or better at magical attacks. There's some other stuff that bravery and faith also affect in there too. I'm just giving you a very baseline level of understanding so that we can talk about.
So
yes,
deep.
Yes,
there's
it
so
is.
much more.
We're gonna go into it. All the characters also have zodiac signs. Like the zodiac signs are a big thing in this game as well. And certain zodiac signs are like polar opposites of one another and can like deal extra damage. While some zodiac signs are like more compatible and like deal extra damage. If you're like standing near characters, you get little buffs or stuff like that. So the meat of this game by far, for sure, is the job system. And I think this is probably my favorite aspect of the game because this was the part of the game where I felt like, oh, this is not a tactics RPG. This is a Final Fantasy tactics RPG because of this system right here. Do you have any kind of general thoughts about the job system before we dive into it deeper?
It's why I love this game so much, or one of the main reasons why I love this game so much is because to me, that's what makes Final Fantasy so unique and so great is its job system. Like that's sort of its identity is how unique, because it's used in various manners across the different games. You know, like Final Fantasy IV, everybody's kind of set with a few exceptions. You know, like
Right.
you've got, oh, like this is the Black Mage, this is the White Mage, this is the Dragoon, this is the Summoner. You know, but this one you can blend, you can mix, you can match. You could just say, nah, this is a knight and he's going to have nothing but like knight abilities. Or I want to have a black mage who can wield a sword and can also cast and who can also do the jump attack like a dragoon. And I want him to be able to teleport. Like you can do crazy, weird combinations. And that's why I love it. It's just, like you said, it's so quintessential Final Fantasy, and I love the design. Honestly, it's one of the reasons why I love Final Fantasy XIV so much is because of the job system, and it's obviously different than it is done in Tactics, but yeah, that's why I love it, because I just love the job system. To me, it's the most interesting thing to be able to swap jobs and change, because like I know games like World of War, and don't get me wrong, like I love World of Warcraft as well, but I was always annoyed that if I wanted to do something different, I had to go make a new character and boost that guy up. And having ADHD, man, I don't want to do that. I want to just change at the drop of a hat and go be this other job now. So
I think we've definitely come a long way in modern video games into like locking people into specific roles in games that have that, because I just think of like Elden Ring has the ability to like, you can, if you like halfway through your Elden Ring playthrough, like want to respec your entire fucking character, like you can do that. And that's like, I think that's a really like forward way of thinking of like not locking somebody into like, if they're not enjoying your playthrough, it gives people options. And yeah, I agree with you. I think there are several Final Fantasies where like the job system makes this game for me. It is the reason that I am an ardent defender of Stranger of Paradise, because the job system,
that game,
dude,
chaos.
Yes. The job system in that game is fucking brilliant.
It's so cool, right?
It's so cool the way that it's implemented in that game. And like, yes, I know chaos. It's so silly. Like funny Jackman like swears and says.
But at the same time, it's like the gameplay is fun and cool, and the jobs and like changing it at like mid attack even is just, it's awesome. Like,
yes,
it's my favorite part of that game.
If your only gripe about that game is that you don't like Jack because he says bullshit and then listens to Limp Bizkit, like
I fucking love it. I was
come on,
dying laughing. I was like, this is amazing. Like this is what, because like admittedly sometimes Final Fantasy takes itself a bit too seriously, but it's almost like they were poking fun at the fact that they do. Because Jack Garland is the best character in Final Fantasy. Come at me, internet.
Yeah, I will not fight you on that. I agree. I've said the same thing, so I agree with you there.
Good.
But yeah, I think any Final Fantasy with a job system implemented well, it makes it absolutely shine. So I just counted. I think there are 20 jobs in the base game, based on my counting, and then I think some other ones got added into the War of the Lions, like the Dark Knight and stuff like that.
Yeah, Dark Knight and Onion Knight were the two that they added.
So
which Dark Knight is a pain in the ass to unlock.
I believe it.
And I'm kind of not worth it.
Not interesting. Okay, so
arguably, based off of like what you've done to. Sorry to cut you off, sidetrack.
Dude,
here.
Go for it. That's why I brought you here.
So, like, I'm trying to remember. I know for a fact you have to master the Knight class and master Black Mage. Mastering Knight Yeah, mastering Knight that's tough, but not as tough because like most of the abilities are about the same amount that you spend to unlock. And unfortunately with Knight, most of the abilities suck because it's the break armor, break shield,
Yes.
which is like great that but kind of you would rather attack. Black Mage is a lot of job points to unlock everything and master that. And then
Yes.
there's a couple, I don't remember what they are, but you have to get like a couple of other jobs to like level 5 or something like that. And then you have to get, I think it's 20 crystals of fallen enemies. So you have to go into a fight, kill an enemy. The 3 turns have to pass. They have to transform into a crystal. You absorb that, and then you unlock the Dark Knight. So
it seems like
it's not worth it.
Yeah, it seems like way too much work.
Yeah, it's because by the time you've done it, you're like, I just need Knight and Black Mage. I could kill everything with just counting like flare. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, oh god.
So yeah, base game. So 22 if you count those two. Base game that there's 20. I'll just list them off real quick here. So there's Squire and Chemist, which are base jobs. Knight and Archer both require you to have level 2 Squire. Priest in the PS1 version, which is this kind of annoyed me in the PS1 version because it was like Priest and Wizard, and I'm like, this is established.
That's
Final
a white
Fantasy.
mage. That's a black. Yeah,
it's a white
mage.
That's
what I always
mage.
have called. Yeah, like Lancer. No, that's a Dragoon.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was like Lancer. I'm like, wait, what are we doing here? So, yeah, there's the Priest, the Wizard, which is the white mage, black mage, Monk, Thief, Oracle, which was renamed to Mystic, Time Mage, Geomancer, Lancer, renamed to Dragoon, Mediator, which was the Orator, Summoner, Samurai, Ninja, Calculator, or the Arithmetician in War of the Lions, Dancer, Bard, and Mime. And then some special jobs kind of pop up based on like recruitable characters. There's Holy Knight, Engineer, Heaven Knight, Hell Knight, Divine Knight, Holy Swordsman, Temple Knight, and Dragoner, yeah. So
Race or Rias or whatever the hell her name is.
Yes, absolutely. So, Mick, I don't know if you noticed, but I pulled this nice little handy job tree.
I like this.
Put it in the notes.
I was like, this is so great.
I did not make this. This was on the Final Fantasy Tactics wiki. Shout out to, it says by Bauhaus. So shout out to Bauhaus that made this graphic. This job system, this job tree is incredibly in-depth and complex. And so basically the way it works is you'll have a job equipped to a character and you can switch jobs basically whenever you want. When you meet the requirements for other jobs they unlock, you can switch back and forth between them. And then during combat, when you do things that reward you with experience and job points, you get experience and job points. And you can spend those job points on the different abilities that are located inside the job itself. So, and when you have those abilities, you get them to keep, and that's where like the mixing and matching of your character comes in. So if you like Mick was saying, if you level up some like knight abilities and some black mage abilities, you could have like a knight that can wield a sword and also cast magic. Or so this system I arguably creates infinite number of play styles and infinite number of things you could possibly do. Because a lot of the later jobs require multiple levels in certain jobs. So like the Samurai, for example, you have to have level 3 Knight, level 4 Monk, and level 2 in Lancer. Then unlocks the Samurai. To get the Ninja, you need level 3 in Archer, level 4 in Thief, and level 2 in Geomancer. So you're encouraged and rewarded, I would say, for experimenting and dipping into the different jobs. And that's, I think, where my first major roadblock was like, I'm like, I need to be switching my characters because I was just like, oh, Rams is going to be a squire and then he's going to be a knight. He seems like a lord. So that's like a very like knight type of character. But towards the end of like where I got through my playthrough, there were some times where I like dipped into him as like a time mage, or I dipped into him as like a monk, or a bunch of other stuff. So the system does not want you to exclusively stay within the confines of like one job. I would say you could arguably do that if you wanted to do like a challenge run where everybody is just like a single job. You could do that if you wanted to like have a bad time. But I think the experimentation of the job system is kind of where I found a lot of my enjoyment from this game, even when I was getting my ass kicked.
No, I agree. I think that's the cool thing about it is you are encouraged to experiment and to try things and the ability to set, because the way the combat system works, you have it's like 8 different ability slots, I think, across a character, 6 or 8, something like that.
I think so. Yes, that sounds about right.
So, and it could be something of like a reaction ability. So if you get attacked, your character could react to it using, a counter attack or counter magic, or they automatically put up a shield or something like that, or a movement ability, or, just kind of I guess like a utility ability in some cases.
Yes.
Like you could equip a sword as a black mage or a white mage, or you could equip armor as a black mage or white mage. So I think that's what's so cool about it, is you can really get super, super detailed about how you want to build out your party, or you could keep it relatively basic and be like, nope, this guy's a knight and he has knight abilities. This is a monk. They have monk abilities. This is a black mage. They have black mage ability. Like, I think that's what's so cool about it, is there is a level of freedom in this game that you can go super in depth. You can keep it basic, but I think it's more fun the more you delve into the system and check out and try different abilities and experiment with stuff. And I mean, as I've been playing this game for, almost 30 years.
You don't have to say it.
Yeah, it's fine. Over 25 years. Yeah, a long time, just a minute or two. And there's still combos that I've not tried or not done. So that's, I think, what is allowed me to continue going back to this game over and over and over again, is that there is just so much. In fact, speaking of which, I want to give a guy a shout out. There's a guy online named Cerebo who has made his own kind of mod to the game and has fixed a lot of like the imbalance issues, because there are unbalanced aspects to the game.
Yes. And
he's fixed a lot of that. He's fixed a lot of the abilities, and it is great. And it is such a like fresh coat of paint onto the game, and it makes it so much fun. So yeah, Cerebo's mod for Final Fantasy Tactics is great.
Interesting. And I would encourage, if you're listening to this and want to play this game, I would encourage you to engage with that job system and experiment, because I found that a lot of abilities from other jobs like also synergize really well with other jobs. So like I think there's like a movement +1 ability in like the Squire job, I think it is. Like having +1 movement is on a small map is really, really good.
Yeah.
And then there are just so many other instances of like, I think about that. The Squire job in particular, like the Squire job is kind of like your base job, but I would say it does have a couple of abilities that I consider foundational. So like I said, I think move +1 is really strong. Getting JP up early to get extra job points from like when you're doing actions.
So helpful.
Yes, I think will really help you in the, that's when I looked up, because I went into this game blind, and then I looked up, I'm like, starting like advice for like a starting player, and they're like, get JP up, like that'll help you. Movement's always good. And
get
then
monks as soon as you can, because then you are gonna wreck shit with every monk.
So speaking of unbalance, yeah, monks early game are pretty fucking
good.
wild.
Yeah, they're so good. Wave Fist is great. Chakra's great. Revive, you could just bring anybody back.
Right. So that was the thing I struggled with the most early game, was like being alive and like sustaining myself in fights. That was like the biggest challenge that I had. The monk removes both of those things, because the monks not only beat ass, but they sustain themselves in fights at the cost of like no MP, and they can sustain others around them, and they can attack at range. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, yeah,
they're so, I don't want to say they're broken, but they're kind of broken.
Yeah, at least earlier in the game. Yes, if you can get monks like right away, like those are really like. Yeah, like you said, Chakra, Wave Fist, like those are some of my go-to things.
Earth Slash is also really good.
Yes,
too. Like the monks are real good. Like I think almost through every playthrough now, Ramza's like secondary thing is martial arts, just mostly for Chakra, because it's like I can just constantly heal myself for free, and it's a good little amount of healing. I can't remember if it restores MP or not.
I don't
remember if they have an ability that does, but it just being able to restore your health is incredible.
And so we mentioned too, going back to how I mentioned the bravery and the faith stats. So I think when you get Ramza's a good example of that. When you get Ramza right away, I think he's got equal in both. So I think he's got like 70 bravery and 70 faith or something like that. It's like pretty much equal. I think that's really cool, because if he was like skewed towards one or the other, I feel like that would kind of like limit his options for like some of like the generic characters that you get are definitely skewed one way or the other to be a more physical class or be a more magic based class. But Ramza has good stats in both, so you can take him kind of anyway, which I think is like really great. And I was like encouraged to dip him into like monk. Yeah, pretty much once I put him in monk, he was a monk for a while. Because that really helped out. And like you said, yeah, just being able to sustain yourselves, especially Ramza in big fights, because most of the times, like if the objective isn't to like rescue somebody else or the objective is to just clear out enemies, like if Ramza dies, like that's pretty much a game over. Yeah. So him being able to sustain himself in big fights was absolutely huge. Ramza also has some pretty insane like Squire abilities as well.
Yeah.
So Yell, as it's known in the PS1 version, Yell is kind of stupid.
Yes.
It's so awesome.
So insanely good. Like once you figure out like what it does, you're like, why would I not just sit there and yell
Just
for
yell at
like
people.
3 turns and then go whoop everyone's ass?
Right. So what Yell does is it gives you +1 speed every time you use it. So you can use it on Ramza or you can use it on someone adjacent to him. And this was something else I found out about in this game when I was talking to you, when I found out that I felt that time mages were really useful. Speed and turns and movement in this game are very, very important. So raising Ramza's speed or raising anybody else's speed to have a couple of extra turns, because the way turns work is it's kind of a turn-based version of the active time battle system. You have like CT or like charge time, and when your charge time reaches 100, like it fills up based on like your speed. And when your charge time reaches 100, then it's your turn to go. And then doing certain actions like deplete that time back down for when you get to go again. One of the things that I also found too, that if you're moving around a lot, you'll take less turns. But if you're waiting in place a lot more, you'll take more turns because moving actually costs you more of that charge time. So anytime I could do something and not have to move, I would get more turns. So I immediately went into the mode of like, yes, like my early turns, I'm going to be yelling at people with Ramza and giving them speed, because 1 or 2, like it's +1 speed, but that builds over the course of the fight. And having a couple of extra turns just with anybody at any time, or going before certain people, like if an enemy was supposed to go in like the turn order and then I yelled and then that bumped my guy in front of him, like that's incredibly useful. So
and I think for like canonically, you're encouraged to have Ramza be a squire more than often, or at least use those abilities,
right?
Because his squire is different from the other squires in the game.
Yeah, he's the only one that has that one. Yeah,
and he gets more specific abilities, like the cheer up ability is only his, which increases bravery by 5. Scream, which you get only in chapter 4, like he starts to get that ability, and it is stupid how good it is. It's +10 bravery, +1 speed, +1 physical attack, and +1 magic attack, which is disgusting. And then
you might not think so, because you're just like, oh, like +10, +1, but like in a game where it's like the numbers matter that much
too.
Yes, that's huge.
and then you have to do something special to get it, but he also can get the Ultima spell. Like it's available only in chapter 4, and it's available in a specific fight where an enemy like casts it on you, and that's it. Like he gets hit by it, and that's how he learns it or whatever. But it's a 10 MP spell, and it's 23 damage times magic attack times faith times the target's faith.
Jesus Christ!
Which is just you one shot pretty much.
You're one shotting people.
If you build yourself up enough. Yeah. So I think like. From the lore, Ramza is supposed to be a squire, but it's also like you look at it and you go, oh, because he's broken as one. That's why.
The kids make the joke where it's like, oh, this thing is lore accurate. It's like, this is lore accurate Ramza. Like, that's how good he was. Yeah.
He was just the ultimate squire. And I think Delita also has the same abilities when he's a squire as Ramza does. Like their squires are special, but all the other ones don't have like some of these extra abilities. But Squire is still kind of solid and has utility through the whole game.
Yeah, I find myself dipping back into it just to pick up like certain abilities. Cause like I said, there's the JP up, there's the move. I think there's the move +1. Another one I picked up on most everybody that I brought into battles, like I'd switch them to Squire and pick up Accumulate right away.
Yeah,
because Accumulate is +1, and you're thinking, all this +1 stuff, but not all the characters have like something to do. And like I said earlier in the game, if you're just like moving and waiting, your character's not doing anything. So I would much rather like move. And if I wasn't within striking distance of anybody, I'd much rather move, use accumulate, so then I would get job points and experience that turn, rather than just like not doing anything at all. So you really want to find the abilities that allow you to do stuff like that, because I found that I always wanted to be like doing something that got me job points. The experience, not so much. I consider job points more valuable. I always wanted to do stuff that was getting me more job points so I could unlock like more better things.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because that's how you get all your better spells. You know, is like your white mage or your black mage. You know, you want to get that fire 2, or you know, as a white mage, you want to get, you know, a revive or a regain or regen or whatever. And that costs job, and some of them are kind of pricey job point wise. And it's that choice of like, well, do I want to spend 300 points and get 3 lower tier spells, or 300 points and get this stronger spell that can do more for me? So having, just like you said, like constantly having your people do something that can boost them up in a fight and just tack job points on for what they're doing is huge for just developing your party.
Right. Or if you want to go into a little bit of a cheese strategy here, you just go into a random encounter and
you beat the shit out of your own people.
Yeah, you teach everybody to throw rocks. You just throw rocks at each other.
Yep.
So that is a viable strategy if you choose to go down that route.
Let the one enemy get like low health, so they run over into a corner, and then you just start wailing on each other.
Yes.
And boost your job points up. Yep, I've done that many times.
I did that a couple times, when I needed to like get my job points going, and then like once I had accumulate or those other abilities that would allow me to just like do something and then wait and do something and wait and like build up those job points. Similar thing. I didn't want to go be like, oh, I got to like level fucking 99 in like the first chapter. I didn't want to like completely break it.
Yeah, but, well, what kind of psycho would do that kind of thing?
Right. Right. But there are ways that you can like, do that and take advantage of it. But if you want to, but I feel like that's kind of like the game gives you the ability to do that. Like they obviously would have thought of that while making it, because I think the game is very well made. So they obviously gave you almost like a built-in difficulty to be like, hey, if you want it to be easier, you can just do this. It's fine. Or if you don't want to, you don't have to. You can engage with it however you want. Me, I had Ramza yell at pretty much fucking everybody as often as I could.
I running also just like to think about like if this is like in an actual battle situation, this dude's just standing there being like, go faster, go faster.
Yes. I wish that's how it worked in real life. That'd be nice.
Right. I have +5 speed because this dude's been yelling at me for 20 minutes.
Just my guy in the gym just stand behind me and yell at me while I'm on the treadmill so I can run faster. That'd be wise. So we kind of talked about it. Is there anything you mentioned before we got into the job talk? You like to get ninja going right away. Is there any like specific things you kind of like to do to set yourself up, or like in your playthroughs?
There's a few abilities. So I do like to have kind of a balanced party to an extent. Like I like to have kind of 2 dedicated magic users.
So not 5 monks.
No, I mean, God, if I was smart, I would do 5 monks and just wreck everything. But I do like to have, because this game is, especially considering when it came out, is really nice looking, particularly like the way the magic looks, and the summons. The summons are just awesome art. Like my wife actually has the Moogle summon tattooed onto her ankle.
That's rad.
And so I like to see some of that stuff just because it's like, oh, that looks really cool. And so I like to have 2 dedicated magic users for sure. And I like to have 2 dedicated like kind of physical combat people. And if it's, it's a 5-man party, so I also like a utility person. So usually that person will end up being like a dancer or a bard, or just provide like some sort of like a, boosting up the other characters, or just they're not really focused on like attacking the enemy so much as like helping build the party up and supporting them. And just a few like go-to abilities that I love to get. The reason why I like to unlock ninja so early is because if you can get double weapon, like because that's one of their abilities, is they can equip 2 of whatever weapon. And then if you make someone a knight, they are wielding 2 knight swords and will hit for like 150 points per strike. So most things you attack are dead after one hit. So that's like a huge one. Dragoon, I really like the Dragonheart ability, which is a reaction ability. So if you get hit, you cast re-raise on yourself. So if your guy dies, the next time it would come around his turn, he just gets right back up. So that's a really
Yes.
cool ability. Move +1's really good. There's another one. I think there's a move +2 or something.
I think there is. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also teleport, but if you try and go too far, it'll fail. So fly is actually a little better because that doesn't fail. It also looks ridiculous to watch them like fly around the stage. So yeah, there's a lot, as you can clearly see.
There's
like
a
counter
lot.
magic is super fun. Like, oh, you got hit, boom, counter fire 3. Like it's pretty great.
A couple other ones I found useful. I found the chemist auto potion pretty useful early on.
So great. So
At least
clutch.
because chemists are your only source of healing until you get to those white mage jobs, and and then anybody that is like in a fight early on, like these are kind of like earlier chapter abilities.
Yeah.
Like, if you manage to build up enough potions and you're in a tough fight, just having it so that when your person gets hit, they'll just use a potion on themselves. Really,
so helpful.
Yeah, really. Like I mentioned sustain a few times. Like figuring out how you can sustain your characters in combat when there's like a lot of other characters around them, and they'll get wailed on like 3 or 4 times in a turn. Really, really crucial. Really, really important for this game. Which, by the way, I found that mobbing I used to like go and engage like multiple separate characters, but I found that like just ganging up on one guy and then just beating the shit out of him and then moving on to the next guy was a little bit more of an optimal strategy.
Oh, for sure. Well, and another cool thing that they have in this game is you don't always have to do like grinding through like, just doing endless battle after battle after battle, because at one point you unlock the ability to go do like, I guess, side quests. I can't remember what they call them in the game, but they're essentially like little side quests, and it's just little story things where you select 3 members in your party and you send them on, just like a little excavation quest to, we're looking for this treasure in this jungle, and it's like you can set the amount of days that it'll take them, because that's sort of how everything works in the game, is like it's like months and days and all that, because it's all zodiac, horoscope based, essentially. Yeah,
I just put that together. That's why there were dates in there. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, it took me forever to realize it too. I was, but so you can set like the number of days, like, I'll give you're gonna take 10 days to go do this thing, and then you can walk around and they won't be in your party, and you can go just walk between cities or go do a fight or whatever, and when it's done, you go back to the bar, and they come back and they tell you about their adventure, and they're like, we went through the jungle and it was dark and perilous, and like each of them has like a little thing that they say, and they're like, and we had great success, and they'll tell you like the treasure that they found, and it's almost always an Easter egg from something else in the Final Fantasy series. Like one of the locations they find is Matoya's cave from the first game, and it's little things like that are just super neat, that I like. And at the end of every one of those, they always say, "This is the way." So they beat it before the Mandalorian did.
Right. Yes.
But yeah, it's great, and it's just like a little neat extra thing that you can do. But the best part about it is you get Gil, and you get job points and experience. So it's a way that you can, if you're like, man, I really need this character to be like a level 3 thief, and I don't want to have them be a thief in fights and all that kind of stuff, but I need to get them leveled up to that. You can send them on these things. They can get up there real quick. It's way faster and way easier, and yeah, you reap the benefits.
Yeah, I told you before the show that I did not engage with that system because I went into the pub like one time, and then a bunch of people started like dropping a bunch of lore on me, and I was kind of like, whoa. You're gonna have to slow down, sir. Like that. I will do the story stuff after I finish this. Please do not talk my ear off. Which makes sense for like a bar or a pub, because you hear things in bars, and that's a nice little touch. That's how every D&D story under the sun has ever started, right? It's like 5 strangers walk into a bar. Yep. There's a bar fight, and now all of a sudden we're fighting dragons and killing gods. So
every single time. And that's another thing that they add in too. That's kind of cool. That again encourages you to try different things and experiment with different types of jobs. Is eventually you can get the poach ability. I think it's a thief ability, and you use that ability on different monsters that you fight, and that will, if you poach them, you can buy certain equipment from the like poacher or whatever that you normally wouldn't have access to, but because you're taking out specific monsters, you can get special equipment and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So it's very cool.
Fuck,
And
I
again,
didn't even know
encouraging you to use abilities that you might not otherwise use.
Right. Interesting. I didn't even know that.
They don't really do a great job of telling you that's a thing that's available. So if you don't like go look at it, you wouldn't know that it's there.
I feel like I need like at least 3 playthroughs of this game to kind of like digest everything.
I haven't even started talking about the deep dungeon.
Or the story. Yeah, we haven't gotten to that point yet, which is I'm gonna
the
rely...
deep dungeon is a whole other thing that's got like the best equipment in the game. That it's a pain in the ass, but yeah, it's a whole thing. I can go into it if you want.
Go for it. Because I didn't know about this. How do you get there? How do you get to the deep dungeon?
So in chapter 4, it's an in-game thing. In chapter 4, there is an island that you unlock again through like rumors and stuff like that. It's like, oh, Monster Island or whatever. If I remember correctly, I think it's related to a optional side character that you can get called Worker 8, who is a robot.
Okay.
So you get a robot on your team. He's powered by one of the Zodiac stones. His name's Worker 8. He's awesome. He kicks ass. He's super, super strong and just wrecks everyone's shit. But he's related to Mustadio's character, the engineer.
Yes, okay.
Like, yeah, so he's related to him. But the deep dungeon is it's, I want to say 13 floors, and it's really strong enemies, and there's no light in the stage. So it's completely blacked out. So you can't see. It's like, yeah, like you can see the sprites, but you can't like see the ground.
This sounds like a horrible time.
It's so terrible. And like I said, it has some of the most the strongest weapons, armor, accessories, all that is in this. But you have to use move find item to find these things. Oh,
yeah, that's a chemist ability, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it gets even more complicated because the way move find item works is dependent on your, I want to say your bravery. The lower your bravery, the better quality of item that you would find with move find item.
Okay.
So
interesting.
you would have a character with extremely low bravery walk around with move find item to eventually locate whatever this piece of equipment is, like the Genji gloves or the Masamune or whatever the case. It's always in a random location, just like the entrance to the next level of the dungeon is. So you can accidentally find the next floor in advance and not find the item. It is a fucking nightmare, but if you do it, you get some really, really strong equipment. There's a trick to doing it, and you use the side character. See, I know way too fucking much about this game, everyone.
That's why I brought you on. Yeah. That's why I brought you on.
There are the twins, Malik and Rafa.
Yeah, the Heaven Knight and the Hell Knight.
Yeah, the Heaven Knight and the Hell Knight. So the trick is you lower Rafa's brave until she becomes a chicken. Like literally, she turns into a chicken. If
that's
you get
a thing
the
you
brave
can do
low enough, which is hilarious. You turn her into a chicken. She has move find item, but because she already has like the lowest base bravery in the game, it's really, really easy to do that. So she can just go find you the items. And all the way through the end of the deep dungeon, you get the strongest summon in the game with the final boss that's there. And you can recruit another optional guest character who's like one of those, he's it's not a beholder, but they look like beholders from D&D, the multiple eyes or whatever.
Right. For copyright reasons, they are not beholders.
Yeah, you recruit one of those guys to be on your team, and the final boss of the deep dungeon casts the you get the final Zodiac stone, which is like Serpentis or Serpentor or something like that. But he casts a summon on you that you can only get if you fight him, and your summoner has to get hit by that spell to unlock it. But yeah, so that's the deep dungeon. Again, a thing you don't have to do. It's completely off to the side. It's doing its thing. It's chilling. And yeah, like you could never do it. It's just like the Beowulf storyline, the Cloud storyline, the Worker 8 story. Like most of them are connected. So like once you start one, you're doing them all.
Right.
But yeah, that's why I love this game, because there is so much shit that you could get and do in this game that you don't need it, but you could do it. So yeah, that's the deep dungeon, which is just very cool. It's a very cool thing that they added.
I agree that it's cool, but it also sounds like a terrible time.
It is a terrible time because you're like, oh shit. Because that's the other thing too. You could be going along. Oh, my guy's got move 5 item. Oh, they found something. Potion. That's how you know that their bravery is too high and you didn't get whatever item it was supposed to be.
Wow. I'm glad you told me about it, but I think I'm good. Thanks.
The trick is like you kill enemies and let them crystallize, so the crystals will provide you some light so you can see easier. Yeah, but it's still
that makes sense.
I don't recommend it unless you're a psychopath like me.
I will Google it later and I'll admire it.
Yeah, like I want to complete this whole thing. I need every ability and weapon.
I'll YouTube it later from afar. I'll admire it from afar. I'm perfectly fine with that. I have to finish my just base playthrough first.
If I was a smart man, I would just use 5 monks and be done with it. But no, I'm like, no, I need the special summon and the dragon and the robot.
I really want that on a shirt. Be like, if I was a smart man, I'd use 5 monks. Like that's a perfect.
Don't get me started on Cloud. Like, man.
Well, you were talking a little bit about Cloud before the game. Cloud's not great in this game, is he?
He's terrible. His abilities are not worth it because one.
Not the poster boy, oh no.
Yeah, so one, you have to unlock him. So that in itself is difficult.
Yes.
Because, well, it's not difficult, it's just, it's side quests. Like, you have to engage with, like, certain characters and be in certain areas at certain time and do stuff like that. So it's not hard, it's just, it takes time. And then you unlock Cloud. The problem with Cloud is by the time you've got him, I want to say your character at that point is probably in the 30s or 40s level-wise, even if you're not like power leveling or anything like that. Just through the course of the game, you're a fairly high level at that point, job-wise and experience-wise. Cloud starts at level 1 with everything. His job is level 1, his experience is level 1.
God damn it, Cloud.
Yeah, so he already sucks. So he already sucks as that's concerned. And you're just like, well, no, look, he's got the special job of soldier. I'm sure he's awesome. You would be wrong in assuming that. So he doesn't have the squire job. He's got the soldier job. Sort of like the other, like Mustadio's got like the engineer job instead of squire. Mostly the same abilities with the exception of like their attack abilities. But Cloud has all these different limit breaks. And you're like, oh, well, that's cool. I'm going to unlock these. You can't actually use any of them without acquiring a special sword that is, no one tells you where this is. There's no like information that indicates, oh, it's here. You have to go here and get it. No, you have to look it up in a guide or online or someone has to tell you. And it's the same move find item bullshit that I explained with the deep dungeon, where you have to like go to the volcano stage and go to the top of the volcano and you'll find the meteorite blade. And then Cloud can cast his limit breaks because you have to have that sword. Otherwise he can't use any of the attacks that he has access to. And then when you get them, they're not even really that great compared to other stuff. It's like, I should have just made him a fucking monk. It would have been more useful.
Could have. What kind of sick joke is this? I think I'm good. I don't need Cloud. I don't need Cloud in my party. It's fine. Before we move on, because I already sense this conversation going long here.
My bad.
No. I knew this was. I always say this because it's like the conversations start to trick longer and longer, and I lose track of time. Because time is meaningless. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on for gameplay stuff before we move on to? I want to briefly speed by presentation and then kind of just talk about essentially Japanese Game of Thrones. So
yeah, I think I've pretty much hit everything in terms of gameplay because, like, you know, I touched on a little bit where like there's certain attacks that only become unlocked. Yep. For certain characters or certain jobs or things like that. And so there's just a lot of depth and there's a lot of meat on this bone that you can have access to gameplay wise.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it wouldn't serve the episode well to sit here and like go like, battle by battle and just kind of break all that down, because it's essentially like this, you're fighting these battles over and over again. It's just like the terrain and the places and the people you're fighting and the way you choose to engage is going to be where the majority of your experience comes from. So but yeah, I think we've broken that down pretty good. Let's take a quick little music break here, and then we can head on over briefly to presentation and then story. All right, we've touched on gameplay. Let's talk a little bit just about how the game looks, about how the game sounds, and all that fun stuff. So I don't really have any complaints. Usually I start off with like complaints in this section. I don't really have any complaints. I think this game looks fantastic for the time. I was listening to the guys over at Retrograde Amnesia play this game. They're doing like a beat by beat story, kind of like a book club breakdown of this game. Like, and they're like, it's like 30 episodes in, and like each episode's like a small little sliver of the game. I learned from them that the decision to kind of constrain the size of the maps and the number of characters on them was a conscious choice to be able to help this game maintain 60 frames per second. There was some like occasional like slowdown when certain things happen, like a little bit. Nothing that's like too, I would say, is too egregious, and nothing that like, I'm not like a FPS snob, so like frame rates and like a little bit of slowdowns here and there don't really like bother me that much. Doesn't break my immersion. It doesn't like ruin the game for me. It's not like, oh no, the frame dropped from 60 to 59. Oh, this game's the worst game ever made. I'm not like that. I don't care. Like, I play emulated games on my fucking laptop, and I'm just like, how it looks is how it looks.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever played Bloodborne extensively, you stop caring about frame rates at some point. You're just like, whatever. This is what it is.
But I think that decision to like the smaller maps, the less characters on them, I think that was a good decision, because I think that's where a lot of this game's identity comes in, because like games on other tactics or maps on other tactics games are fucking ginormous. I think the sprite work is real.
The Warhammer games. And
yes.
Yeah. It's like enormous. You spend 20 minutes just walking towards each other.
Yeah. There's some Fire Emblem and Advance Wars maps that are just like, I've spent the last 6 turns like just moving, just like driving across the map. But I love the art style of this game. I think the sprite work is fantastic. The sprite work, I wrote this in a couple times in the notes where I made comparisons to Suikoden 2. The sprite work reminded me of Suikoden 2, because I think the sprite, I think the sprites are like really expressive for like all they have to do. Like, it's easy to like give sprites a defined set of like things they can do and not make them very like emotive to like convey the story. But I felt that the sprite work did a lot of that. Like, there's dudes like getting stabbed and falling over and bleeding out, and like they throw their arms up, and like this. Yeah. Yes. By the way, the death noise is fucking awesome. By the way, it's so good. But yeah, I thought the sprite work was a lot of the compliments I gave when I talked about Suikoden 2 about how detailed the sprites were. I felt that the same could apply here, that the sprite animation. The only kind of nitpick I have that I think I would like if I'm comparing to Suikoden 2 is I think like a lot of the character portraits look a little bit samey, and a lot of the sprites do kind of like tend to blend together, which is I think where the jobs help them differentiate, because like a lot of the sprites look the same, but the job sprites, you can very clearly tell which characters are like which jobs. Those are very easily defined, and I think that's more important when you're coming to a game like this. So do you have any thoughts on kind of like the visual presentation?
Like I was saying earlier, I think it's just especially when you look at the time, I think it's a beautiful game. You know, the art is very distinct. It's aged incredibly well. Which that's always the benefit of using sprites, is it's going to age pretty well. I mean, another game that takes place in Ivalice, Vagrant Story, that game is rough to try and go back and play. I mean, granted, it's a different style. It's, 3D as opposed to a sprite. But yeah, like I think the sprites are really good. You are able, like you said, most of the important characters look different enough that you can determine like, oh, that's Zalbag, that's Dysadarg, that's Goltana, that's Larg, and that's helpful. And even guys where you're just like, oh wait, who's this guy? Oh, he's got a green cape on. He's part of the Death Corps, Oh, he's got a red cape on. He's part of Lionel, So little thing they make do. They make it work to where you can tell enough. And like I said, the summons look awesome. The magic looks awesome. It's like you said with the frame rate, there's a couple things here and there, and usually it's a specific spell or a specific ability that will just kind of make it. But again, it's nothing that's ever killed it for me. Most of the time, I don't even notice it, to be perfectly honest. But I think it's a great looking game, and they do one of like, it's such a small and like stupid thing, but I love it so much when games do this. Ramza's sprite design changes throughout the game. In Act 1, he looks completely different than he does in Act 4. Same with like Delita. They change what he's wearing and what he looks like, and I just appreciate that. I like when games show that growth and change in a character, as opposed to you look the exact same the entire game, no matter what. Like, so
I look like a 16-year-old boy from the start. Yeah,
and so it's just one of those like little small touches that I appreciate them doing.
Yeah, this is a game full of small details and things that they didn't have to go out of their way to make look that good, and they did. And I think it adds like a lot of, like I said, they could have just left the sprites there with the text boxes and left the scenes relatively static, but they didn't. Like, a lot of the sprites like move around and things happen and people get stabbed and they double over in pain and
people get the shit knocked out of them too. People punch each other like so hard in this game.
Yeah, people get fucking stabbed and like blood gushes out. It's it's nuts, dude. It's some of the most violent sprite work I've definitely ever seen.
One of my favorite moments, because he's like one of my favorite characters from the game, is Zalbag, and it's when they attack the Beal family castle, and like Dysadarg gets stabbed, and they're trying to kidnap Ramza, their sister, Ramza, Zalbag and Dysadarg's sister, Alma. They're trying to kidnap her, and she's like screaming. Oh, and Teta, they're kidnapping Delita's sister as well.
Yes,
and she's screaming, and Zalbag's sprite just comes like running into the room, pops his sword out, and just starts beating ass. And it's just so like well done for little tiny sprite dudes. It's I love it, because he just comes in and it's like wha-cha, wha-cha, and it's great.
Yeah. So the one thing about presentation we talked about again a little bit before the episode is for the PS1 version specifically, the localization's a bit rough. So I noticed that, because we mentioned how in the War of the Lions version, a lot of like the names change. You're already saying like, I'm gonna call them by the PS1 names. I only know them by the PS1 names. And again, shouting out the Retrograde Amnesia guys. One guy is playing the PS1 version and one guy is playing the War of the Lions version. And trying to listen, sparse out, figure out who they're talking about. Yeah, because the names change significantly in the localization, and as well as just sometimes when you're reading them, things just seem like a little bit. Just a little bit off with like the way sentences are structured and the way that things are said. Again, not something that I think is like immersion breaking or like ruins the game at all. It's definitely like I think it's definitely one of the few times where in a game where I have noticed like a localization, not just kind of things I noticed about it. And honestly, a couple people told me that before I started playing the game, and I maybe don't know if I would have noticed or paid attention that much if I hadn't been told that. So it might have been a thing of like just maybe where I was like looking for it, since somebody told me that, oh, like the localization's not as good. I've heard that they fixed a lot of that stuff in the War of the Lions version, which I think I might, after I finish I'm like in chapter 4, after I go back and finish Tactics, I might just dive into the War of the Lions a little bit and just kind of see some of the differences there. I think that'd be just curious for gamer things.
I do recommend playing War of the Lions, because it's like I said, stuff is cleaned up. They have more of a I guess period style of speaking in War of the Lions. Yes. Where it's more how they would speak in, like medieval times or whatever. I mean, you don't have like anything like egregious, like the first thing that comes to mind from like Final Fantasy said, this guy are sick. Like, you don't really have anything that's like, like, oh man, that's like horrible English.
All your like, base are belong to us.
Oh yeah. You don't quite have much like that, but it is, it's not as good of a localization, and again, the names are different. But War of the Lions also adds some cool visual aspects, like the cutscenes, which are voice acted.
Oh, the
in
cutscenes are
certain
gorgeous.
parts.
I watched them. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're amazing.
Great, like that kind of like brush art style. That's just really cool. There's some additional guest characters, like Balthier from Final Fantasy 12 is in it. And,
Yep.
one of the characters from Tactics Advance is in it. And I think that's it.
It's cool. Balthier's a bro, so that's cool.
And he's got a gun, so like, you know, the strongest magic. So,
Oh yeah, right. Always parry this, you filthy casual.
Yep.
We talked a little bit again. We talked a lot before the episode. I mentioned, or we were talking before at the break, which you heard some of the lovely music from the soundtrack. Mick, what are your thoughts on the soundtrack for this game?
Banger after banger after banger. Like, it's so good. Yeah, everything about it. And even though, again, because anybody who's played any Final Fantasy knows that there are just certain songs that you are going to hear a billion times.
Yes.
Tactics is one of those, but I don't ever feel like I get tired of it because it is so well done. It's orchestral. It's very like it's not like, you know, MIDI sounding or it's really well done soundtracks. And again, yeah, they're just so good.
This is another thing I was not prepared for. I was not prepared for anything in this game. I was not prepared for how incredible the soundtrack was for this game. I mean, I remember I started up for the first time and I watched that little like intro scene and like the piano's playing and it's like kind of light music, and then the main screen pops up and it goes into like that full like orchestral like fanfare, and I was just like, oh shit, this is what this game's about. Like it was it was incredible. Like I sent chills up my spine. And I'm glad you mentioned what you did because in RPGs, and especially I think in tactics games, the music that you're hearing, you're going to be hearing a lot because you might be spending a lot of time like plotting out your turns or moving your guys around. You might have like a really big turn where you're taking like a bunch of actions at once, and you're going to hear that music a lot. So I think it's challenging to have to design something that you said doesn't wear on the player's ear and be like, oh, this is a little bit fucking irritating. Like just example off the top of my head, I love Super Mario RPG. I admit that the battle theme is short enough where it kind of can get a little bit grating sometimes if you just listen to it over and over and over. It's because it's the same like 20-second loop of music over and over. But I thought every single theme in this game where there was a battle was like appropriate for like the atmosphere the game was trying to set. I thought all the fucking like background music for like all the incredibly important scenes that were happening added to every single fucking scene. There wasn't a single time in this game where I was like watching a scene and like heard some music playing and was like, ooh, the music kind of detracts from like what's happening in the scene. I think the entire soundtrack serves the atmosphere and the story of that this game is telling so incredibly well. And that's not easy to do in a game, especially like I said, in the tactics games where you're going to be hearing, like you'll be hearing the world theme a lot. And, you know, the battle themes tend to, especially if you're just doing the random encounters, the battle themes kind of tend to cycle through and you'll hear those a lot again. But yeah, I thought all that was incredible. And the sound design too in it, like you said, the death sound, all the sounds of like characters taking hits, like all the magic, all the summons, like everything in this game sounds absolutely incredible. Like I have 0 notes on anything related to sound.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Excellent.
So good.
I don't think I had anything else about presentation. I think that was really it. All right, so I'm going to tell everybody here, I don't normally do like a spoiler wall section. If you are interested in the story of Tactics, I would probably like bow out here because we're going to talk about story and then we're going to wrap up the episode. I'm going to be relying on your knowledge of this story very heavily, Mick, because it's very, very dense. It's a very dense story that involves a lot of like names and stuff. But please, like, if you don't want the story ruined for you, like check out here because I think this is a story worth experiencing. It's one of the most complex in a series like Final Fantasy, full of incredible stories and full of incredible characters and moments. This is one of the most like complex, in-depth, fascinating Final Fantasy stories out of all the games. Just like kind of my blanket statement there. So please, let's bow out now. Skip ahead to the end so you can hear Mick show all his stuff, and then go play the game, then come back and listen to it. So, are you gone? Okay, we're gonna start talking about it.
Oh,
Mick, holy Yeah, holy fuck, Mick. This story's insane.
It's and like it's not just insane because you could just
when I say insane, like that's a good thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, no.
Yeah.
But it's like it's just not insane. There's so many levels where like the ante keeps getting upped as you go because you could just have it be like there's so many just deep like themes that they explore, like class, what is your place in not just society but like within the like subsets of society of like, oh well, you're adopted by this royal family but you're not really a royal, so where does it like there's all that, and there's like all the political intrigue that is just super meaty. And then they're like, oh, by the way, you know what, fucking demons trying to take over the world too. And it's just like, wait, what? Hold on. Oh, by the way, the church is fucking corrupt. Like they could just have like, oh, well, the church is corrupt and trying to control everything. Oh, except also demons that are trying to rule the world and conquer. And it's fucking bananas, and it's so good and so well done. Like that's I think the other great thing about it.
So yeah, I've really been struggling with how to like convey this section just because there's so many points I want to like hit on and stuff. So background knowledge just for base level so you understand like what the fuck is going on here. So the story focuses on the setting of Ivalice. When the game opens, you can get like this opening, like if you wait long enough, get this cutscene to kind of like explain what's going on. So basically what's going on is that Ivalice and the neighboring kingdom just fought like a 50-year long war that just got done. And after that happens, there's kind of like this succession crisis in the kingdom of Ivalice because like the king is about to die. One side wants like the one duke to like take over and be the regent to the throne till the king's son comes, and the other side like wants the other prince to take over. And so both the sides have like the lion banners. Like one side is like the black lions and one side's the white lions, and it's where we get like the lion war. So this is basically just a gigantic war of succession for like the throne when the king dies, and it's based off of like the two characters are Prince Larg and Prince Goltana, I believe, are the two kind of sides that are set up here. And this is kind of like the simmering conflict. And the cool thing about this game is that that's the basic knowledge. And when we start the game, we immediately are like told all this information, and then we get this little like hint, this nugget that it starts talking immediately about Delita, right? Like Delita was the hero of this war, of the Lion War, of the War of Succession. He was like the savior. He stopped everything from happening. And the game immediately throws at you this theme of like history repression, right? Because then the opening of the game is like, oh, but there was another story told where there was another hero that doesn't get talked about, and his name was Ramza, the character that we play at. And so, Mick, I gotta tell you, as soon as I saw like that angle they were going for, like this history, like kind of this rewritten, this repressed history angle they were taking here, I immediately, like all my expectations for this game were shattered. I was like, oh shit, like this is the direction we're going with this game. And I found that just so prevalent, even like today, and not to get like political on this podcast, it's not political. Like we're dealing with a lot of those same things like in this country about like rewritten history and like what version of history people want to tell other people. So that really like, and like you said, just to add that on top of like, oh, the knights from the 50-year war, like they're like depressed and they've been like removed from society basically. Like they came back from the 50 Years War and like they were just basically all right, thanks, like go fucking fend for yourself now after you fought for us for it's
wild. Like it's one of those things that it's such a poignant game and has like, I think there's and I'm gonna butcher it because I can't remember, but there's like a meme that gets shared around that. Hold on, I wonder if I can find it. It's a WeGraph meme, and he's saying something. Let me see. Oh yeah. If the penalty for a crime is a fine, then that law only exists for the lower class. Yes. And like that's a meme that often gets shared around today, and it's like, holy fuck, this game came out in 1998 and is still like, they made that statement back. It's like a fucking tactical RPG was making like huge statements about like class and, political stance. And it's Honestly, I think Tactics might be like, you know, start to finish the best story in the Final Fantasy series, and like no one knows that because most people are like, it's a tactical RPG, fuck that
Yes.
shit, I don't want to play that. But they miss out on like this really deep, it's probably has like the best character arcs in it, and development, and just everything's dynamic. The story, even though it's insane, kind of doesn't like become nonsensical. You know, there are some of the Final Fantasies where I think they verge into a little bit nonsensical.
Yeah.
I don't think this one does, because it's like, yeah, it's crazy stuff. It's like, oh, demons, great. Oh, this they're resurrecting their god who's trying to kill it. Cool, but like it's all presented in a way that it makes sense in that world.
Yes.
And you realize the stakes get elevated more and more and more and more and more. And then it's like, oh, by the way, it's all a cover up. You didn't know any of this until I told you about it, which is like, what? Oh, okay.
And I think where, like I said, I want to go back and maybe do another Passover of this game, just because I presented it to you in a way. It's like, oh, it's a war succession between like these two guys, but it's so much deeper than that, because you meet so many like different parties on both sides that all kind of want different outcomes from like this war of succession. And so everybody kind of has different motives and are doing different things behind the scenes of like things they want to happen, and like machinations towards like ending this war, having one side win over the other. And then, to find out like 3/4 of the way through the game, or like 66% of the way through the game, that, oh, this is actually like an overarching plot by the church, who wants these two sides to fight so that the church can kind of like assert their ultimate authority. And even that plot is just like a subplot, because like the demons are trying to resurrect their god, and that the church is just kind of like a cover up for that whole thing.
Yep. They want all this bloodshed to happen because it needs to happen to resurrect their leader, which is like, holy shit. So it's like there are strings being pulled by like 4 different hands, and it's wild and just
the
crazy.
People pulling the strings are also having strings pulled on them. And I think that's why, like I said, I was going to start writing a lot of story stuff in the notes, and I was just like so overwhelmed with the number of names, number of characters, number of players. And it would be easy for a game like this, to like throw in all this stuff and for it not to be executed well, and just be like, you have this mismatch, like mosh of characters that you're introduced to, and they come in and out, all this stuff. But it feels like everybody you meet, everybody you have conversations with, everybody that has like a stake in the outcome of this war, I felt like I knew them well enough as like a character by the end. I felt like everything was there's never any point where I was like, this feels kind of cheap, or I'm like, oh, this guy doesn't really need to be here. He feels kind of like filler. Like everything was fleshed out like incredibly well.
Yeah, it's cool. And like I said, just seeing the evolution of some of these characters, like Delita's is incredible and fascinating, because, he goes from this, he's adopted by the Beowulfs. Him and his sister are adopted. They were commoners. The Beowulfs are of royal blood, but they're still not taken in. They're not really, you're not one of us because you're commoners. And just seeing like Delita's journey from, it's struggling with like his identity is like, people say I'm a commoner, but I'm embraced by this family and my best friend and this and that and the other. And then his sister dies. So then it becomes I want to get vengeance for her. But then it becomes more than that, where he becomes kind of like, Goltana and Larg, where these two guys are just vying for power, and Delita's like, no, fuck that. I want power. And he doesn't even care any longer about like avenging his sister. Like that's become a distant memory. And he's like, no, I want to be something more important. I'm not a commoner. Or like, I want to show what a commoner can do. And it's wild. And to another extent, like seeing like Dysadarg's journey, Ramsa's older brother, where initially like he's trying to help Larg ascend the throne, because like they're boys, and like, well, if Larg's king, then I get like a good spot. But he becomes one of the Lucavi, so he's possessed by a demon, and then it's like, well, actually, no, I just need to manipulate this so more blood is shed so we can resurrect our leader, which is, it's wild, just the levels of depth that it goes into. Like, Wheatgraft is the same way. Like, he's, they're rebels. He's like, hey, we were knights in the 50-year war. We got cast aside like old garbage when it was over. We didn't get land. We didn't get money. We didn't get anything except shit on. So they're the rebels, and they're trying to fight, against the establishment. And then he gets recruited by the church. Okay, now the church is supporting me. Yeah, I'm still the rebel. I'm still fighting the fight. And then he gets possessed by a fucking demon. and he doesn't care that his sister, a lot of dead sisters in this game too. I want to point that out.
All roads lead to demon possession in the end.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate story.
So it's just, it's wild. Like the just character, just evolution and depth. And it's not just like, oh, it's one guy or two guys. No, it's multiple people across the board.
Groups of people. It's insane. I will say I really like. I can't get my brain to wrap around the story, so I can like go through in like a specific line. So I'm just going to talk about parts that I really liked. It seems like what we're doing. The way this game starts, I really like how it uses. So this game starts in the present time, and this is where we first meet Ramza, where we first meet Delita. We have that intro battle. Gafgarian is there. Agrius is there. And that intro battle where the only person you can control is Ramza, and that's where we see Delita for the first time. He kidnaps Princess Ovelia, and so we get that moment in the present time where it kind of establishes this thing where like Ramza and Delita, we get the sense like they are friends, but they're kind of like, or they have a prior relationship, but it's strange because Ramza thought Delita was dead, but he's not dead, he's alive. And then it flashes back to like sometime in the past. And basically all of chapter 1 is everything leading up to that moment that you played at the very start of the game. And that's where you see Ramza and Delita. They're like in the Soldiers Academy, and they're like cadets. They're like in training. It's like where the nobles send their kids to like be part of the military or whatever. And yeah, that's where you start to run into like the stuff with Ygraf and I think they're called the Corpse Brigade, which, by the way, fucking metal name, Corpse Brigade. That's metal as hell. Like, oh my god, like if you're gonna call yourself something,
because I think they change it to the Death Corps or something like that in War of the Line. I can't remember. I was
like, Corpse Brigade was awesome.
Corpse Brigade is still pretty fucking metal.
It's
so cool. Some of the names in this are really good.
And then I think it's really clever to have played that present moment first, so we kind of get that sense of relationship between them, because most of chapter 1 we kind of see Ramza and Delita like running into these situations, like when they encounter the Corpse Brigade and like they're saying all these things. It's like, well, you're nobles, you had stuff to go back to, like we had nothing after the war, and kind of all this stuff. And I think that's kind of where it's like the character arcs of both Ramza and Delita like kind of start. And I don't know. I think it was impactful to have that moment in the present and then go to the past.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that just like, I don't know, something about that kind of story convention, I felt like set up the story really well to have like those really convincing character arcs for both Ramza and Delita, where they kind of come to the realization that, yeah, this whole world, the society, the order things are is kind of fucked, to the point where, yeah, in chapters 2 and 3, Ramza basically gives up his nobility and becomes just a mercenary. And basically his kind of guiding ethos is, it's not the name, it's the person that does the deeds that matter. Yeah. The name, there's not the attachment of importance to the family name or the noble name doesn't matter as much. And yet you're right, Delita kind of goes, him and Delita both kind of go on separate paths to kind of attain peace. I would say that Ramza's path is more peaceful. Like you said, Delita's more like looking for power in his kind of journey, or ends up kind of like just saying, no, I'm going to fucking take the power and kind of stick it to the system. Yeah. And then that kind of whole wraps into, it's like, then that the history repression comes into play, and then Delita does become the hero of this story, and you get to see kind of what Ramza did to like stop the demon uprising from happening, and then that gets repressed by the church because they considered Ramza a heretic, and they didn't want that to be, they couldn't have a heretic be the hero of the story, right? And like, fuck, man, by the time I got to the end of the story, I was just not prepared for like that to be like the whole, like so many complex plots. And basically, like at the end, like I wouldn't say it's like necessarily a happy ending. Like the world's still kind of existing in this like power struggle between like the church and like nobility and all this stuff. And you're just kind of like, well, what did we accomplish in the end? Like it told us all these themes, but there's kind of like an ambiguous ending where you're not really sure like what happened, and now this repressed history is starting to be told, and like what's going to happen because the truth is finally coming out.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and it's there's other like levels of sadness, because like you know Orin, you know, the guy you meet who's like the I can't remember what his job is, but he does like the crazy, like, I think he's astrologer, I think is what his job is.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
He's Orlando's stepson or son-in-law or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. But he gets burned at the stake for being like,
Yes.
no, I know the truth. I know what really happened. Like, here's the truth. And the church is like, fuck that, kill you.
Yeah.
And then like like you said, it takes place in like the present day, where his descendant finds like his papers and is telling like, hey, I'm a historian, here's the truth. Like,
Right.
So yeah, there's just like a lot of levels of like, man, it's not quite really a happy ending. It's, you know, some of it was kind of for naught, and like you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And, you know, Delita lost sight of what his goal was. And like, you know, in the end, he's laying there bleeding out, essentially, kind of like calling out to Ramza, who he thinks is dead, is sure, you know, like maybe he died, maybe he didn't die. Like that's kind of ambiguous as well. Yeah. So, you know, and he kind of calls out for him, kind of like, sort of, I guess, bemoaning the station that he's found himself in. Like how dare I do this to myself? So yeah, it's wild, man. Like I said, I think it's such a great story that most people will never see. So for like, if it's like, man, I don't want to fuck with like doing a playthrough of this game myself, like watch one that mostly hits the story, because it's a great story.
It really is. And like I said, I couldn't help but feel like, you know, you mentioned, you're like, this game was made in 1997. I couldn't, like, when I got done, when I was finished watching the story and played through the parts that I did play through, I spent like maybe 35 hours with this game. Man, tactics RPGs are not conducive to being a new father, so let that be a lesson out there to everybody else.
If you're curious.
Yeah, if you're curious, which is why I put no RPGs on the Game of the Month vote for this month. So, good move on my part. But I was just shocked and stunned at kind of all these lessons and all these things this game had to say, and we're kind of dealing with those things today still. Again, like, not to get political, like, we're still very much having the conversation about like class and rich people in society, and we're having the conversation around, you know, certain history is uglier, and trying to change history and trying to paint it in a more positive light to serve a narrative of like a group of people who are trying to like achieve something else. All that shit is still happening today. And I was just kind of shocked. In a way, I'm grateful. So I agree with you that I think more people should hear about this story and experience it, because it is a fantastic story. There's also a side of me that says the more hostile side of the gamer community would call this game woke as fuck today, because it's about because it's about like we were having insane conversations around like, you know, LGBTQ people in games. Like, I can't imagine a game coming out today that would say like, oh, the church is corrupt and rich people are bad and fucking like poor people like are being disenfranchised. Like, today people would be like, that game is woke as fuck. Like, what is going on here?
Which is crazy, because like, you know, when this game came out, nobody was saying that. They were just like, holy shit, this game is wild. Because like I said, we've talked so much about like rich people and poor people and class and like royals and commoners, and again have barely touched on the fucking crazy demons and the Zodiac Graves. Like, but again, it's like you could talk so much about like all that in depth, and we still haven't even gotten to the other aspect that is a major plot point for the game. And to me, that's incredible. I think that's what shows how strong the game is.
So do you want to take us down that plot point a little bit? Just because, like I said, I'm like right at the cusp of chapter 4. So you want to take us down like that, the kind of the demon plot there, and just kind of summarize that?
Okay, I'll try and do it the best I can. So they do change this up a little bit more in War of the Lions.
Okay.
But in the original PS1, it's very much presented Christianity in a way, where there's like, oh, there's the one God, and then there's a sort of like it's Saint Ajora, but that character is very similar or presented like Jesus would be in Christianity.
Yeah.
Where it's like that they were a martyr and you know, so there's a lot of that. But in War of the Lions, I think they clean it up a little bit more, where it's not quite like a monotheistic religion, like there are multiple gods, and that's sort of how the Lucavi are, is that they're gods, quote unquote, but not really. Like, but that's anyway. So the gist of it is the Church of Galapagos, or is it Galapagos?
Galapagos.
Galapagos. The Galapagos Church with the turtles. No. Their kind of main point of worship is a saint called Saint Ajora, and Saint Ajora was this figure from long ago who kind of shook things up a little bit. You know, at that time, I think sort of fought against like what the church was doing and reestablished this new church about like, no, these are the sort of tenets that we should be following, and these are the sort of things that we should be doing. And that became the church's, you know, that is present in the game as we know it, where again it's like, oh well, these were the teachings of Saint Ajora and they were this and they were that. Turns out not the case. Saint Ajora was like a rebel, and as we then later find out, Saint Ajora was the vessel for I want to get this,
it was like Ultima.
Ultima the High Seraph, which is the leader of the Lucavi or the Zodiac Braves. That is a myth and legend that Saint Ajora assembled the Zodiac Braves to fight off this great evil. No, the Zodiac Braves were actually the demons and were defeated, and their essences were sealed in these crystals called Zodiac crystals. I think they call them auracite in the in War of the Lions.
Yes.
But so they essentially seal the demons in these crystals, and these crystals are like scattered and hidden all over the world. So, this is where it's like, it's so hard to like cliff note this because it
really is.
Because it makes sense, but it is a little like in depth. But so essentially what happens, because you have this huge power struggle, and it's like shadowy figures, and you have the church who is trying to seize power. You have Larg who is trying to seize power, and you have Goltana who's trying to seize power. The church is under the mindset of, if we reassemble the Zodiac Braves for today, like get these crystals, give them to knights, then the people will side with the church. They won't care about what Goltana wants. They won't care about what Larg wants. They will all do what the church says as opposed to the king. So they're essentially trying to establish a theocracy as opposed to like a monarchy.
Mm.
Well, the church is being manipulated by the Zodiac Braves that they've selected, because the Zodiac Braves are possessed by demons.
Yes.
So then they are like, we need to manipulate these events to cause a huge war where a lot of people die, because that's how we can resurrect Ultima. Is there has to be great bloodshed, and we have to find a suitable vessel, and that's how we... So they don't really care who wins. Larg, Goltana, it doesn't matter to them. They just need a lot of people to die, and they've set it up to where, like, whoever wins is going to get killed anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yes.
With the whole idea of, we, the Zodiac Braves, the demons, are going to conquer the world.
Yes.
I think that is the best I could try and, like, cliff note it.
No, I'm glad you did, because like I said, it's difficult enough to keep track of like all the different players in the opposing sides and like this conflict, and then like add the layer of like, oh, now the church is pulling the strings on top of it, and the church actually wants to be the power. They're not interested in, they want to seize more power from themselves. So they're basically using these two people fighting against each other as an excuse to do that. But oh wait, no, that's not actually what's happening. The church is being manipulated by all the demons who are trying to bring back there. So it's like a triple layer like subplot cake. And like it gets told to you over the course of like all these games, and also like in between these like gigantic battles, some of which I've spent a very long time on. So by the time I got out of the battle, I was like, wait, what's actually happening? Like, hold on a second.
You have to go out of like gameplay mode where you're like, okay, this guy's gonna do this, and this is that, and this. Oh, this enemy is doing this, and their tactic. So it is a lot to like kind of process in certain moments.
And usually, like, if it wasn't pulled off in a good way, it could easily be very confusing. But I would say that they definitely pulled it off. Creates a really interesting story that you can like dig down into and like really enjoy just kind of all the stuff that's going on, and doesn't really make anybody out to like be the good guy, right? Usually you can like be like, oh, I'm like Noble's the Beale family, like they're the good guys, I'm gonna side with them because Rhymes is a Beale. It's like, no, his whole family fucking dies and he becomes a mercenary. Or like, oh, I can side with Delita because he was the hero written by history. It's like, no, Delita was kind of like fucked up too. Or it's like, oh, obviously you can side with the church. It's like, no, the church doesn't always have the best intentions either. So they're
pretty much like Rams is the only good character.
Yes.
Like he stays good the whole time.
And everything around him just kind of sucks.
Everything else sucks, but he's still trying. And I think he even kind of acknowledges or says like he doesn't know if he's doing the right thing, but he's just trying to do or like he's trying to do what he thinks the right thing would be. Like, he's like, I don't even know if what I'm doing is right. So it's fucking wild. And we didn't even go into like the Zodiac Brave fights where you fight the demon characters in the boss fights, because it's holy shit, that's a whole other layer of just complexity.
If we had a whole night, Mick, we could be here all night. But
because there's so much for this game. It's Japanese Game of Thrones. Like at one point Ramza should have been like, winter is coming. Like,
should have, absolutely. So but with that being said, I think that's a good spot to stop the story here.
Absolutely.
So, Mick, I'm getting the texts for the child to come upstairs. So, and I hear maybe some crying happening at your house.
Mine's eating.
Not to kind of abruptly cut this off here, but I think dad duty calls. At least for me, dad duty calls.
Same.
So,
gotta go ahead.
I just want to say thank you so much for coming on this episode with me today. This was a blast. 2 hours flew by. Oh my God. I can't believe it. This was a long time coming, way overdue to get you on here, but thank you so much for giving me some of your time to talk about.
Thanks for having me and let me just kind of and I feel like there's so much more. We scratched the surface on it. There's so much more in depth, but the one thing I would say, go play it. Go check it out. Watch a playthrough. Go play it yourself. Like, cause it's a great game. I know the tactical aspect is intimidating, but I promise you it's worth it. It's so worth it.
I agree 100%. And if you want kind of like a more beat by beat breakdown, I can't recommend Retrograde Amnesia enough. They're doing a fantastic job of going like basically a little steps at a time to like break down everything that's happening. So that's a really, really in-depth if you want to go super in-depth on that. But Mick, before we sign off here, do you have anything you'd like to shill or tell the people where they can find you on the internet or about some of the stuff you're doing?
Absolutely. So as I said, I am a voice actor. I do different things. You can hear me on a regular basis on Doorway to Nightmare. I typically play every old man voice that you hear and every psychopath voice that you hear. That tends to be me. That is my niche in life, apparently, is to be an old man or a psycho. I also do Dungeons and Dragons on Twitch with Playotic Games, which is twitch.tv/Playotic. We have multiple campaigns with multiple wonderful, talented people that are going on pretty much any and all the time, it seems like. I'm trying to think. I'm on the internet doing stuff. If you want me to do some voice work, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to hear anything and everything. I'm always trying to do something new and interesting. And yeah, that's about it. Other than that, I'm just being a dad, man. Living the dream, brother.
I'm about to go do that right now, but again, you can find all that stuff. I'll link a bunch of that stuff in the show notes so you can track down Mick and maybe not track him down. That seems a little aggressive, but
it feels aggressive. But
you can find him wherever you want. I follow the Playotic Instagram page. The short videos are always so funny that you guys post. They're absolutely freaking hilarious. So go check out all that stuff. As for me, you know the spiel. I mean, I guess this is your first episode. Hi, I'm Eric. My name. Hi. Yes. Hi, I'm Eric. I'm the host of the Unlockables. You can find me at linktr.ee/Unlockables podcast all of the good stuff is there. You can find me on Instagram, the show Instagram, Twitter, the show Twitter. I'm not calling it X. Join the Discord server, and the Unlockables Patreon is back. You can get voting rights if you sign up there for the game of the month. You get double voting privileges to sway the votes into whatever game you'd like to see played next for the game of the month. And you could even be on an episode like Mick here. You can just be like, hey, this sounds like a fun game. I want to be on the episode. Of course, you're not any monetary contribution that's strictly optional. You don't have to do that. All the great Unlockables content you come to know and love is still coming to the feeds for free. I do not gate any of it behind the Patreon. That's just if you feel like supporting a small creator. So go and check that out. Patreon.com/the Unlockables podcast, maybe? I don't know. I don't know the link on that one. I might have to double check it. But look for it. It's in the description of the show notes. So again, Mick, thank you so much, sir. I really, really appreciate your time. And
thank you for having me.
No problem. And until next time, until the next episode of the Unlockables, remember, it's not just the story of video games, it's the story of you.